Guten Nacht. I am Count Mozart. Welcome to the Count Mozart Show. I am your vampire host extraordinaire.
I love you.
I love you too. And the only immortal host in the world. You know it's true. Well, even though Bruce Springsteen was born in the USA in the 1980s, right now I'm going to bite you. Now, I want to welcome you all to this week's episode of the Count Mozart Music Series, Count Mozart Music. And if you can gaze onto my little display right here, here is maybe gives you a hint of what we're going to talk about. Can you guess? Well, this episode is about the lovely 1980s. And I'm not talking about the 1780s or the 1880s. I'm talking about the 1980s. The 1980s in specifically America. Over the world, it's true, but America. If you remember the 80s, you weren't there. But I was. Anyway, I'm always around, and the 80s are one of my favorite time periods of culture and music, etc., in the world. Specifically the United States, because it was a knockout. Let me tell you something. You had people like Prince here with his Purple Rain, which is, perhaps the greatest musician to do a movie ever, I would say. Purple Rain was probably the most successful. There have been others, but this one really takes the cake, and the music is phenomenal, and the Revolution was Prince and the Revolution. They were phenomenal, and this was just, he was already on an ascent, and this really just, took him to the stratosphere. And underneath that, you'll see people like Duran Duran. Now, this Duran Duran, of course, they're not from America. Of course, they're from England. But they were this fashion, new romantic pop, I mean, they had a guy in there. His name was Andy Taylor, who was like this, almost like a rock guitarist. But they fused that somehow, and Kraftwerk, they were kind of inspired by them and people like this. But this Duran Duran, they were fashion incarnate, you know what I mean? I mean, these guys really, and you can't mention Duran Duran or any of the 80s groups, but specifically people like Duran Duran, without mentioning MTV. I want my MTV. This MTV exploded, and it brought music to your eyes, and not only your ears, And people like Duran Duran put out these little films like Rio, or Hungry Like the Wolf, and they look like short films, they like never seen before, and not in that fashion anyway. And that was Duran Duran. But then you had Michael Jackson. We talked about Michael Jackson, but this was his time, man, With Thriller, he had a few other ones off the wall and all that kind of stuff. Again, a lot of stuff kind of oozed over from the late 70s, but this Thriller was a thriller. I mean, it was number one, 1984, around that time, with Van Halen. They had a big hit in 1984. And this Michael Jackson was on top of the world. Then you had, of course, the unbelievably talented and groundbreaking Madonna. I mean, this Madonna broke every wall down. This woman was a powerhouse, man. Young girls dressed up like her, and her concerts were a knockout, and her music was, it was a good dance music. It was fun. It was the 80s. When people say that, it's the 80s. If you never experienced it, it's too bad for you, because it's probably the best era for the cornucopia, the mix of everything. Look, take a look at this. Just listen to Count Mozart here, because you can, you're going to be jealous. You're going to be like, well, I grew up in the 90s and stuff. Well, I'm sorry. The 80s. Look at rap. Like around 79, you had a lot of inner city stuff from the Bronx, New York, Queens, New York. You had the Sugar Hill Gang with Rapper's Delight. Now, that was around 79, but again, boom, it hit the 80s like a knockout, like a Mike Tyson punch. Hello, 80s. And this UTFO and Roxanne Shante with Roxanne, I want to be your man, that kind of stuff. And then later, that's when you get your Run DMCs and all those other guys who came after these first Grandmaster Flash and all that kind of stuff. But that was the birth of rap, and then you still had. Country was big. Country was still making hit songs. And you had, but the new wave and the rock was something. U2 came out, from Ireland, of course, but they had that something. Then you had goth music. You had it's not really goth music. It was just great music. It's a little punky, little new wavy, but the little rock to it too. It was like The Cure, Susie and the Banshees. That was a whole subculture to that. The people dressed in the dark and they look at dark and everything. But then you had like I said, with the Prince and everything, and those flashy bands, and don't forget. Then you had the end towards the end. I mean, look at Quiet Riot. People don't really remember that, but that's when metal got very, very mainstream with the Mental Health and Quiet Riot. And then you had your Twisted Sister. And then, of course, your Bon Jovis came. And then the floodgates opened to your, Guns N' Roses towards the end of the decade and groups such as this. But, in that middle area, you had the Police. Phil Collins was like a powerhouse. Phil Collins, he could do no wrong. He probably just rolled over in the morning and he rolled into a gold album. This guy was incredible. And then you had Live Aid. You had probably the best movies. You had that E.T. floating around, and that was a crazy thing. And then you had the great television shows like Miami Vice, and that was a fashion statement with Don Johnson and Michael Thomas and the suits and the neon shirts almost. They're crazy looking in that. But this 80s, man, there'll never be another time like this. So what Count Mozart would like to remind you all, to your artists out there, and to even the fans of music, fans of things, demand the best. Demand something new. People running around on stage in leotards, it's like a circus. I mean, you don't have to be half naked to be successful. Just take a look back at who I'm talking about. No one tops these people. I say it in some of my shows, and I mean it. You can go back and try. And that's what you should be doing. You should be topping this, not, either copying it or a watered-down version of it. Just because you can sell out Madison Square Garden for 3 nights, a comedian has done that. You know what I mean? You doesn't mean that you're groundbreaking or people are going to remember you for being a magnificent writer or singer or performer. And if I was to say anything about the 80s, and I was to name 3 that will never be duplicated and never be, even the one that is still alive, will never be the same. The Like a Virgin's been a long time since she was. That's a little joke, Madge. Don't get no pissed. Hey. Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Prince. Right there, it's done. I get to tell you. You can't beat that. You just can't, and you never will. And so you can try, and that's the whole point of these things. But I really want people to remember what that 80s was all about. Yes, it was about excess, but it was also a really good time where people came together. And I want to remind you all, there was one more act. There's thousands, I could just go on and on and on. I had a list, but I'm keeping some off because I might do shows on them. But I want to point out one band called Culture Club. And Boy George O'Dowd. Now think about the balls on this guy. He was a gay man dressed like a woman with the biggest hits ever. And people loved him. And the reason why I bring that up is because, like I said in the last one, don't fall for all the baloney. People love each other. Is there people going to have problems with people here and there? Of course. That's human nature. Is there a grand plan to go against gays or straights or whites or blacks? No. We love one another. And I bring up Boy George because of that. He was a groundbreaking performer and beloved. I love this guy. He's just fantastic. Count Mozart looked around and I said, man, look at this character. That's a cool character. And look what he did. I think you're gonna understand what I'm talking about. Where a lot of strife comes from, it's not organic. And I just want you to remember that. Try to look back at certain times in the music industry. I know music industry is a naughty word because, a lot of corruption and they took advantage of a lot of artists. But then there were times where they really did support the artists, and they were just amazing artists like this Prince right here and the ones I spoke about. The Police, I mean, like I said, I could go on and on and on. And it was just a wonderful time to be alive. So I just want to remind you that moving forward that... I want you all to go to CountMozart.com to check out Count Mozart Bites, which is, I let it all off my chest. But we are really moving into the music realm. We have some great interviews coming up. And we're working with some very important people. And I think this is going to take the Count Mozart show in a whole new direction. So you're on a great ride. And we're doing it together. And we're doing it with love. Because I love you all. And, music is so important to me that I want to share it with you. And we can interview these artists in a better way than they're being interviewed. There's a couple shows I've been watching. And they're not that good. I am telling you, they got a great funding. And they're doing... I have the biggest guests in the world, and they fall a little flat. It's time to get back to having some fun and doing something outside of the box. I know I say that all the time, but it's true. We are the rebels here, at the Count Mozart show, and this is where you want to be. So I just want to remind you all that I love you, and I shall return. I see you soon. I promise.
Hello to my little friend.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine? What, a DeLorean?
Yeah.
Stick around.
As you wish.
Bueller. Bueller.
All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
It's in the hole! It's in the hole!
What is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
88 miles per hour!
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Inconceivable!
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable!
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Bueller. Bueller. Bueller.
He slimed me.
Get to the chopper!
May the force be with you.
Seize the day.
Here's Johnny!